It was exactly around then when Three Idiots had also released. And I said the same dialogue, the whole thing, Abba nahi manenge kind of a thing. So I was just very honest with my dad and I told him what I had seen in the movie. And I was like, I might be a good engineer, but I will never be a great engineer, Dad. You know that. But I think if I pursue music and filmmaking, I might just be the best, at what I'm doing. I might reach that expertise skill level that I can. And before I could, even finish my sentence, he thrashed the shit out of it.
All right, let's go. Hi, welcome to Real Voice Podcast. I'm your host for today, Neil Nakra. As my stint as a talent manager a few years ago, I met a lot of profound and creative people. And one thing I realized was common across the board is that challenges that we face professionally are very universal in nature. So the idea behind inviting guests on this podcast is to address some of those challenges and share stories with you. And hopefully, if you can take something back from it, this podcast is a success. And today we have Mr. Nilay Singh with us. Nilay is a really talented person. In fact, this guy reeks of talent. And I have known him for over a decade. Basically, we grew up together. He's one of my closest friends. And we met when we wanted to start a band together. And today, he's one of the most sought after ad filmmakers in the industry. And he's one of the crazy few out there. And today, we are going to discuss some of the challenges that he had to face to get here. So, Mr. Nilay Singh, welcome.
Welcome. Hello, stranger. How are you doing?
Hello, Mr. Stranger. So, man, look, it's one of those things where I'm so excited to have you here as one of the first guests for this podcast. Simply because if there's one story that's inspired me through my journey was yours. Like seeing you grow as you did has been so inspiring. And it's one of those things when I look back, we met when we were in the IIT Coaching Institute. Right. And we wanted to crack JEE, get into an IIT. And guess what our first conversation was, right? I don't remember. What was the first question that I asked you?
My very first memory of you is being like really aggressively trying to make me listen to this band. What was the band? I think I remember the name of the song. It was called War Pigs.
Oh, Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath. And yes. I was like, because back then I was like, very... like I had just started listening to like Linkin Park and, listening to Nirvana, started listening to like Guns N' Roses, and then suddenly Neil bombards me and he's like, you have to listen to the song. How are you a drummer and you haven't heard this song? This was Neil's first statement. No, hi, hello, who are you? I'm Neil Nakra. He just, from somewhere, he got to know I'm a drummer and this is how he spoke to me. He's like, you're a drummer, you don't know War Pigs?
Yeah.
You shouldn't call yourself a drummer and listen to this.
Yeah, and I remember sending you that song. We had to pair Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Yeah, from there... I remember those days where we were trying to just figure out a schedule by jamming at 4 a.m. in the morning or 5 a.m. I don't remember. But first couple of hours a day, we are jamming and then we head to a class where we were sitting across like physics, chemistry, maths for 8 hours and then going back and doing our homework. To today, where you are this, it's how did that happen?
I mean, no, man, when you put it like that, it just feels a little too much. But yeah, man, I think it's been a very humbling journey for both of us, actually. And I feel like the good thing that I did, as a teenager and moving into college was I just didn't stop myself from like exploring too much. So I just made sure I did everything and anything I could. Apart from just playing drums, I opened myself to, learning how to beatbox. From that, like moving from, the project that we had, our new metal project called Crumble Street.
Yeah.
And from moving from that suddenly to, a cappella, which is like, it feels like an opposite ends of like, two spectrums like that. Because you're playing for like a heavy new metal band and you're now doing a cappella. In the middle of it, I was a part of a pop rock band also.
Yeah.
So apart from music, I think what I didn't put a filter on me or like threshold was just explore more. So, we both in fact started our filmmaking journey together. We had a YouTube channel, Snort EP. So, big ups to that we could explore all our ideas in a safe playground.
Yeah.
And the good thing was because we were all equipped in our, skills to kind of have like a mini production or studio of sorts.
Yeah, man. Those days where I think it was pre the YouTube phenomena.
I think just at the cusp of it blowing up.
Exactly. And I think I still remember one of those cameras that you had. Was it a 1100D or 60?
It was a 60D.
60D.
Back then it was like, the camera to have. Like, of course, like if you can't afford a 5D back then, like 60D was like, the semi-professional camera. Like you're serious. You're not a, random like working photographer kind of a thing.
That's true. That's true. You know, what's fascinating is that in all of this, when I look back at our journey and especially yours, it was one of those things where I remember, Uncle, I'm sorry if this is going to come across as a little rude and how I can say this, but to be honest, it's one of the most inspiring stories to share amongst us. I remember how you had to, it didn't come easy to you. You had to push against a lot of pressure to become an engineer, to do what your parents wanted you to do, to now like being here. But at the same time, if you just go back in those moments, what does it feel like? Do you recall any of those moments?
I think, for me, I think when I think about this, it just takes me back to actually just when I had finished my 10th grade, because I feel most of us as kids, we kind of are driven by what our parents expect from us. And I think we just end up living a certain life, which is their version of what they expect from us.
Yep.
And I think I was definitely that kid, who was just trying to live up to my parents' expectation. So my family background, my dad's an engineer. So it was always like a thing that I am going to do the same because, from my 6th grade, like 7th standard and all onwards, I had already started, using applications, doing a bit of, HTML coding. So I had a bit of inclination towards programming. And by the time 10th happened and I finished it, I was accidentally like, one of the top scorers in the subject of computer science. And since I was a part of a coaching center as well, so they blew that news out of proportion. And, my picture was on all the lampposts across like Navi Mumbai and like,
Oh,
so
shit, I didn't know this.
And like, my score and rank, I don't really recall how much it was. But I remember like my face was everywhere. Now this, I feel in an Indian context, blows up for the parents. Like our parents become celebrities and immediately I'm sure my parents must have imagined कि ये लड़का हमें सियाटल में ऐसा सी फेसिंग बंगलों में हमें सेटल करवाएगा. That's our future. So I feel my parents were kind of expecting that from me versus what I started to realize was that do I really want to do this? Because around that time is when you already know that, okay, now what are you going to do in 11th and 12th? Because in the Indian parent context, they start making you think about 11th and 12th in 9th itself or like 8th, like, based on like where you are. So I knew that I'm going to like pursue IIT and this is going to be my life, like,
So it was programmed in you.
It was programmed in me and it wasn't even like a thought of my own. It was like, this is life, this is how it should be. And this is what my parents expect. And when we moved into, signing up papers and like, suddenly shifting from a school structure to like coaching classes is when it started really hitting me. Is this really what I wanted to do? And because the only creative outlet or like the relaxation of sort for me was music. So which is when you and I met, we were just talking about the whole exchanging songs over Bluetooth and all. So that's what got me thinking that is this something, what is the thing that comes more naturally to me? Which is what I started thinking, okay, maybe it's music. And I feel from there, this question just kept on building with respect to academics. See, because everybody gets a reality check the moment you're done with 10th. Okay, the moment you step into 11th, you see your curriculum and you realize, especially as a science student, you realize what are you made of, and
from Newton to Schrödinger's.
Exactly. So the moment you're in that coaching center, no matter which coaching center that is, you have like 30 more kids in the class, you realize where you stand. And for me, I think it was very clear that I had somehow managed to get past whatever had happened. And this is where you got to push your, say talent and passion angle apart from just being smart.
That's true.
And which is where, I started exploring music and filmmaking because I realized somewhere that I'm not the strongest student in the classroom. And most importantly, towards the end of, my 12th, I started realizing that maybe I'm not as driven as my, classmates. Especially like my friends who were nearby, like everybody was like really excited to find that college, to ensure that, okay, this is the degree we want to pursue, like we want to go into chemical engineering, mechanical.
That's so interesting, dude. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Like, you were in many ways the poster boy, in terms of after a 10 standard, having your posters put up, like look at this topper from ICSE, and then joining an IIT coaching institute because that was programmed into you, to realizing that maybe you are not the strongest suit in the room in terms of academics there, right? I was with you. I also felt that. But it's such an interesting moment, right? I want to understand, what were you feeling then, given the fact that you were also dabbling with music and a few other things you were exploring. So what was going on in your mind then?
So I'll tell you what was going on in my mind. See, I come from a very middle class family in general, and money and how expenses are supposed to be made is always a thing that is a family decision. You just don't go out and like even buy a snack. Like at least back then we used to like my parents ensured that we were very cautious of what we are spending our money on. So that was always an angle, in my head, that whatever I'm pursuing, is this really going to reap benefits? At least back then, whatever knowledge and, exposure I had to life. And fortunately or unfortunately, I had already started making money through music.
Yeah.
So it started to make me question that, this music just feels like a breeze. Like it's just a no-brainer. It's so easy. It's like first nature to me.
Yeah.
Versus even for a, weekly test, I really have to force myself and like, sit and sweat it out and solve those, unit tests to ensure that now maybe I'm ready for the entrance exam. Then I have to compete with even more, aggressive competitors and make sure I get the best job in the placement.
Yeah.
So those things had started, like it was almost like a, what do you say? Like, I mean, my world around me began to like crack and like made me realize, okay, like I need to step out of this bubble.
Yep.
Like, because so far you've just been trying to fulfill what your parents want. And once you're in the coaching and, around people who are more driven than you, it starts to make you realize who are you and like, why are you here?
Yeah.
So it was majorly that, because I started feeling that because money was coming easy from music. And I was like, now this feels like a task, like to be in a room and compete with these guys who are actually enthused to go back home and do homework. And I'm just excited to leave and go hit the jam room or, like, I mean, where's my next gig?
Yeah.
So those things started to question. And moreover, the worst part, I think for me, was I used to feel guilty because my parents had a certain expectation from me, the Seattle bungalow and like coding genius and all of that. So I was like, what am I doing? Like, why is this happening? So, I felt like maybe, what, let me just try doing both. Because now I can say this because now I can analyze myself, 10 years ago, that I try to keep everybody happy. I think that's how I am in general. And I think that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
That, I wanted to keep my parents happy. Plus, I just wanted to do my thing low-key so that they don't figure out. So, I mean, I'm sure you've been a part of our sneaky jams where my parents have no clue. They think I've gone out for a jog, but I'm actually at the jam room and all of that.
Yeah, that's funny, right? Like for 3 hours you're jogging. Yeah, I remember your dad showed up in the jam room once.
Oh man. That's one wild story. So, and for the people who have no context, so Neil and I, we were a part of this new metal project called Crumble Street. We were the thing in Navi Mumbai, local band scene and all of that. Like, we always had like these 15, 20 people show up at every...
Yeah, they knew our songs.
They knew our songs. So it was like a big deal for us, Hashtag Navi Mumbai rep kind of a thing. And what used to happen is, so this was around our 12th grade. Like, our boards were there. So Neil, of course, evidently was more smarter than me. And he would sort out his academics in a way. And I think, Neil, you were a lot more independent than I was. I think just as a person back in 12th grade, I think you did a lot more than most of us. Like what's the word here? I mean, you were like more self-aware than most of the kids.
Yeah, that's because I quit coaching, I think, halfway through 11th. I think I just had more time.
No, I think, see, that's what, Neil, it takes a lot of like, thought and grit to like come to that conclusion and like take that decision and be like, no, I don't want to do something that my parents were pushing me for. And I feel like I started thinking of these things when you quit. Because the day you quit and, we all heard it in ripples, because back then you and I weren't like too tight.
Yeah, that's true.
And, so I heard it from like, fellow people there, and everyone was like, oh, this so-and-so, this guy, like our classmate, he just quit.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, dude, can you do that? I didn't even know that, you can do that. And I was like, okay, now what is he going to do? And so I feel like it all stemmed from there, and just like, snapping back to our... jamming stories.
Yeah.
Like, so in Crumble, like when we used to jam, so because we had our 12th grade going on, we had our coaching classes, exams, we would often sneak out for jams because I was the one who couldn't tell my family that I'm still pursuing music and, my gigs are happening. Yeah. So everything was like a hidden thing. And every morning I would leave my house at like 4:30. we would get the keys from the jam room guy and we would jam in a particular studio.
Yeah.
And my parents would think that, okay, this guy's gone for a jog. So, I would go every morning, leave at 4:30 and be back anyhow. Like, by 7:30, 8, I used to be home before my, parents wake up. And life was great. I think we did a couple of shows also with this same routine going on.
Yeah. And Roy had to go to office, right? Like 7:30 he would catch a train to office. So for context, Roy was the vocalist and he had another thing, like he had to boss that he couldn't ditch at any point. So he had to rush to and get to office at by 8:30 or something. I remember Roy, like we were still in our classes, but Roy had work, like he had a job to get to at 8:30 or what. And we would jam till like 7:30 and would catch his train immediately, right? So yeah, those days.
And so, just when I was starting to think that, maybe I've cracked the system and, nobody's going to know. And one fine morning, I've I was a little late. I think I woke up a little late that morning. I woke up at 5 instead of 4:30. And I reached the jam room and these guys were already there. And, we're like in full flow. And like just when we are about to finish the first song in the first 10 minutes, my dad walks into the jam room. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I remember. That was like so scary, dude.
And like, I legit froze. Like till that moment of my life, I didn't know that a person can actually physically freeze in the moment and not know how to react. And that's what happened. And because Roy, he was like, a lot more active and like in general, like he was older than us. So
yeah,
he just knew how to be more responsible and take control.
He was an engineer.
He was an engineer and, he was with a bunch of these kids. But he knew how to take control of the situation is what we thought.
Yeah.
And the moment he started talking to my dad just shut the door on him and walked out, dragging me out of it. And the moment
that happened.
Yeah. So he just dragged me out of, the jam room and I was like, okay, I'm just going to get my bag. And he's like, yeah, just hurry up. And, and my hands are shivering. I'm trying to stuff everything in the bag and I'm trying to rush out. And I'm like, shit, now what do I tell him? Because I used to have this really tiny bag that would fit inside my windsheeter, so that it legit looks like, because it used to rain. I remember it being monsoon,
Yeah.
And the moment I reach downstairs, my dad is in the car and Roy comes running. And I remember so clearly, I was about to cry. And Roy's like, Uncle, aap sahi nahi kar rahe ho. And I was like, what? He said that.
Shit.
And my dad got so pissed. He just opened the window and he's like, what? And he's like, Uncle, your son is very talented. And I was like, dude, what are you saying? He's going to thrash me. He's like, Uncle, I'm telling you, he's going to be the greatest drummer of our country. And I was like, what? And my dad got so furious at this point. So he just stepped out of the car and he started yelling at Roy and Neil. And he's like, I'm going to lodge FIR against you guys. I'm going to put you behind bars. And I had to calm him down and like rush him back home. So that was like, that's how intense like the scene was, because my parents like, they were really worried. Like they wanted to protect me as, this software engineer, future prodigy, programmer kind of thing. And then to that, and now cut to he's waking up at 5 o'clock and hitting, like a jam room with these folks who I don't know. So I feel, now we're laughing about it, but back then it was shit serious,
Yeah, that's what it is, right? Like I think this is the most inspiring part of this journey, right? Like just witnessing that.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. It's not like, by ditching what we were expected to do to being in that very stinky jam room. I remember how small it was, and the door to the toilet didn't work, and we used to jam in this ultra urine smell in the morning, and then witnessing this conversation to now where you are, right? And even till that, even if you look just a few years ago, I think it's one of those things. It's worth talking about. It's not been easy. It's definitely not been easy. I feel like, I remember we didn't meet for say a year.
Yeah. I think I was under house arrest like hardcore, because firstly, my parents never expected me to have this secret life.
Yeah.
And once they found out that, it is kind of serious. But for them, it didn't make sense. See, now I can relate to them or maybe just understand where they came from. But back then, they were like villains, you look at your parents like they don't want to pursue, want you to pursue what's in your heart. And, luckily, I've always been surrounded by really, self-aware people. Like if I were to like club them all into one category. And I think that's what made me realize that, okay, there is something as your own will.
Yeah.
There is something as, do you like something? Because so far you've been living a programmed life to kind of, make your parents happy. And for parents also, they also feel suddenly how has the wagon shifted? Like, what the hell just happened? Why are you going away from us? Like, what are you doing? And maybe that was their way to react, because maybe that's how because see, here's the funny thing. Maybe this is too uncly of me to say that. But who teaches our parents to be parents,
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah, and maybe that's how they felt a parent should be behaving.
Yeah.
And, right after this incident of the jam room, I was under house arrest for a year. And we would sneak in whenever, there was something. But now I feel that maybe I should have been a little more open, or maybe if I had more courage to speak to my parents about it back then, things would have been different. But it actually went on for quite some time. I think till I finished my graduation, I think my dad and I couldn't see eye to eye on this, career shift of mine that was going.
Oh yeah, that was a journey, right? But here's the thing, right? Like, as of today, the kind of success you've had as a young filmmaker, I know for a fact that your dad is one of the proudest people in your life, right? He's your frontline cheerleader, there for you, appreciating, and like he's with you where you are. But as you said, like, you felt you wish you had the courage to be able to have that conversation. But I suspect you already did. At some point, you probably had that conversation, which is where the switch happened. Do you recall that moment? How was that?
I think, see, very honestly, I think for the longest time I didn't. I think the only time I felt, okay, I need to speak up was when 12th was getting done. I had already given my... what do you say, mains? I'm forgetting the name. Yeah, there used to be 2-tier exams.
Yeah,
the first was mains, and then you had the advanced.
Correct.
So I think I had cleared the mains, and then I had to sit for advanced. I can't really recall as much. But then I think by the time 12th was getting done, I had gotten through, I think, 2 private engineering colleges. I think I had gotten through, which is the one? Yeah, I think some campus of Manipal I had gotten through for, computer science, and that was anyway my goal, because, I had a couple of friends who were studying there, and the life in Manipal was like a lot more attractive than the life in IIT. I don't know why, for me at least back then, with whatever, knowledge I had. And I just felt like a baller, I was like, what, I'm not going to give my IIT exam. And just as a rebellion, because maybe I felt that, this is how I need to show it, I just didn't give my exam, and I didn't tell my parents.
Oh.
So I just didn't sit for the IIT exam.
How have you not discussed this?
And I remember so clearly, like, because what had happened was, like, after this, jam room incident that happened where my dad spoke the way he did to you guys, I was like, dude, this is like insane, because you guys didn't know this, but exactly, a year before that, because this jam room thing happened in 11th grade. And around my 10th standard, I had actually qualified for this thing that Airtel was running around, which were football trials for Manchester United.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So really, this thing that Airtel had a campaign across our country, like in the metropolitan cities especially, like they would pick like these 3 kids from each city and take them, like, a bunch of these 9 or like 12 kids to Manchester legit for like a week, and like, just train with those folks and like just try it out in the under 16, under 17 category. So I was shortlisted. So I had done through all the rounds and all, and I thought, when the finals are happening, I'll tell my dad that day that, what, hey, I'm in the top, 5 kids, and I know I'm going to be in the 3, and I'm going to Manchester United. So the day I told my dad in 10th grade, he lost his shit. And, my coach had also called up my dad, and my dad hung up on him saying, ki aap to football coach hi reh gaye ho school mein, like it was that kind of a thing, because again, like I felt, so I've always been like, let me just do it like 99% and then maybe talk about it. And I told my dad then, I was like, listen, the trials are tomorrow, the final ones. And I know I'm going to clear it, because I was in my peak football skill, whatever, as a teenager then. And my dad was just so furious. And he's like, how could you do this? Like, he was just pissed about, how could you not tell me? How could you even think about this? Is this why you've not been studying enough? Because he started thinking like that. He started thinking that maybe he's investing his energy into this. So he got really furious. And I think the call from my football coach made it worse. So he just told me, no, you're not going to go. And I was like, dude, are you serious? Your son might just play for Manchester. I mean, of course, like, as a teenager who doesn't think that they can play,
exactly,
on an international level. And I thought that maybe I could have made it, like, I mean, leave everything aside. I would get to travel to Manchester United for free. And that's brilliant, dude.
I'm glad you did not go.
So for me, so when this, jam room session happened, it just felt like that whole feeling that happened then coming back to me. And I was like, okay, shit, you know what? Screw football. I stopped watching football. I stopped playing football. And then now I was going to do the same to music. And
Oh man.
so for that 1 year, I was like, I'm not going to do it. So I think over the course of that 1 year, when I was studying, it made me start to hate academics in a way. It made me realize that, dude, I'm good at those things, but I'm not allowed to. I don't have the courage to speak to my parents. What do I do? So I think all that bottled up to this one very, very impromptu, like aggressive rebellion move on the day of my mains exam, or I think advance. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I've secured a college. Screw this shit. I'm not going to do it.
Good one.
And I just didn't go and sit for the paper.
Good one. I wish I could go back into your memories and just look at your dad's face when you broke this to him, you know?
Yeah. No. So, I mean, I think we never spoke about it because my parents were just so... See, because somewhere your parents also have that reality check and they know बच्चा कितना smart है. ठीक है. So, I'm very sure my parents knew कि इसका IIT तो नहीं होने वाला, but चल try तो करने दे इसी बहाने, maybe he'll get into a good college.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question about smartness. I felt like perhaps, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, maybe your dad kind of got the message by then that maybe you're just not interested, you know?
I think he never understood that. Because see, if you're not interested, how the hell did you score that much?
Well,
because for my dad, he was like, if you're not good at other subjects, how the hell did you top in computer science and why were your pictures across the city? He was really proud of it. You know, he was like, he's not scoring because he's moody. I think somewhere maybe that's what he was expecting.
perhaps, yeah.
And I think even then when I didn't write the exam, I came back home, we legit were celebrating because by then I had already gotten through Manipal. And my parents were like, okay, great, you know, we're going to do the Manipal thing and everything's done. And like, I think in the coming week itself, we had started registering for the Manipal University thing. And if I'm not wrong, I think we had even paid the advance for my hostel fees and all over there.
Really?
And it was then when it happened, I kind of told my dad that, that I think I don't want to do this. And he said, "You think?" And I think it was exactly around then when Three Idiots had also released, and I said the same dialogue. Like I mean, the whole thing, "Abba nahi manenge" kind of a thing.
Oh man.
So I was just very honest with my dad, and I told him what I had seen in the movie, and I was like, I might be a good engineer, but I will never be a great engineer, Dad. You know that. But I think if I pursue music and filmmaking, I might just be the best, at what I'm doing. I might reach that expertise skill level that I can. And before I could, even finish my sentence, he thrashed the shit out of me. Because he was like, what is wrong with you? Because, for him, it's like, it's a lot of social pressure also, I can imagine. And now I can maybe understand what's going on. But because he really thought that maybe I've lost my mind. Because, I had not been doing music for that, 1 year gap that was going on. And then I have gotten through Manipal, which he thinks I'm the next Satya Nadella. And now he's saying, ye sab chhod ke he wants to pursue BMM, a degree that he's never ever heard of. And what I had done was actively gone ahead and collected all these college forms and all, like which you're supposed to like physically fill, right? And he was just thrown off. He was like, what is going on? And I think his way of expression, or like, I mean, it may have been physical and he thrashed me because he's never done it before. So more than like being physically hurt, I was emotionally hurt. I was like, dude, what was this reaction? Like, is this how it's going to be? And that, I think, was the first ever time I felt that, what, I'm by myself, screw this, I'm going to do it all on my own. And I just went ahead and I filled up the college forms that I wanted to. And again, as I said, I was telling you, like, I mean, now I can understand why I was doing the way I was doing things. So in the whole rebellion, I went ahead and like submitted all these forms, and I was supposed to get into a college then and there itself in 2013 itself, 12, or like the transition period of like switching from 12th to your first year. And I think I filled all the colleges, and I remember like, that was also like one of the first times I was traveling in train for long distances, which I had not done before. And while coming back home, I remember I had like a proper meltdown and I was like, dude, what am I doing?
Oh shit.
Like, even though I've submitted the forms, it is something that I'm genuinely interested in, because by then I had done my homework to know what, bachelor's in mass media is about, or what are my future prospects in advertising. I didn't know exactly that I would become a filmmaker in general, but I knew I wanted to be close to advertising. Because also like by then I was already doing jingles with a couple of musicians for ads. and I'd been on set as a musician. So I knew maybe I'm liking this side of, the world, and I want to be close to it. And when I was going back home, I had a full-blown meltdown, and I was like, I can't do this to my parents.
Oh no.
And I was like, dude, like, they've like strived really hard and like, to put in so much money for me, ensuring that I get everything I want. Like, I just completely erased all the things that they were stopping me to do. And I was like, maybe I should just listen to them. Who am I anyway? I'm just some random teenager who's like changing his mind, and I can't do this to my parents. So I just scrapped everything, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna try for IIT again. And just to kind of, prove it to my dad that I can, I took a drop. And I was like, you know what, let me just take a drop. Let me try to study harder so that he knows that I tried. And maybe I'm not smart enough to cut through, but at least he'll know I tried. So in that guilt trip, I just took a drop.
Oh.
Yeah, and I had to project it like, I have a plan and I want to do IIT. But it was more of actually a guilt trip of me feeling that I still couldn't do something for myself. I was still trying to like make my parents happy. So mind you, like by then, like from 10 to 12, like 2 years, like while I was like, juggling between what do I want versus what my parents are expecting from me, I still did something that would be good for them.
Gotcha.
So which is when I took the drop, and that's when I realized that, this was a mistake. I should have just gone for BMM anyway.
Yeah.
Because when I started studying all over again, because that's another, that's another beast to be by yourself and, see all your friends, like you also, like everybody was moving ahead, everybody's excited about their fresher parties, these new colleges, you're getting like new two-wheelers and like, the silliest and the petty things. And like, I was noticing those and I was like, oh shit, everyone's moving ahead. I'm back to the same desk, same set of books, same teachers, and I have to give all these exams again. Just to, what's the word? Yeah. Like, just to like soften it for my parents that, hey, he's going to try again. And like, he wants to pursue IIT again. So, that's the whole thing. Yeah. Like, and in my drop year is when my decision solidified. Because I feel something that people don't really teach in school or like is to give you that opportunity to do what you want.
Yeah, and just to add quickly here, right?
Yeah.
Like, I remember this must have been like 2013, 2014, the drop year.
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah. By that time, I think we were also making videos on the side.
Correct.
So there was a lot of exposure to hands-on filmmaking for you.
Yeah.
And you had already experienced that world, as you said.
Yeah.
So did that play any like how did that factor in terms of your decision making?
So see, that's what I'm saying. No, like, it did push me in a way because when I saw all these creative individuals on sets, or say like even you guys, when you would do things, I could see that you guys are so decisive about what's happening. And also your equation with your family was so transparent that your families were cool about you guys doing what you're doing.
Oh no, that wasn't the case, but okay.
That's how I perceived it,
fair.
Because I couldn't say anything. Like, I never told my parents that, oh, I'm going to shoot something on so-and-so. I think 2 years into doing our videos, I think it's only when AIB invited us to Google and all of that.
Yeah, it was actually Google who invited us.
Google invited us, yeah.
And that's where we met those guys.
Correct. It was the AIB workshop where Google invited us. I think it was then my parents started, maybe listening to me like, okay, whatever he's doing, it may have like a future prospect. I think then I started to show it to them.
Yeah, I can imagine, dude. But let's talk about now.
Yeah.
Right? So it wasn't easy then. Then you finally made the decision to pursue BMM and take up filmmaking, music full time, right? Cut to your graduation. I think you got placed from your college, if I recall correctly, for your first job, right? Which was at Shabang. And since then, you've had an exponentially fast growth in terms of your career as a filmmaker. And I think you've done over 100 films in 6 years, across 6 years. You've come to a point where now the stakes are high. You're working with good budgets. You're working with good people. From shooting on a 60D to now shooting Alia Bhatt, right? Like, that's been a journey, right? What I want to ask you is that there have been moments where you've thought about when you probably were living in Worli. I remember you were living means, and you had it tough then, right? Did you at any point look back and thought about your decisions or question where you were at that time?
So see, I'll tell you, since you spoke about the Worley house, so there were a couple of things like leading up to it. So when I took the drop, I remember that 6 months, actually not even 6 months, 3 months into my drop, because I had so much time to introspect and be with myself. I think I had made up my mind in the first 3 months itself, because so that's when I started talking to my dad and saying, see, whatever filmmaking is happening, I'm getting recognition. My peers are noticing my work. And I do see that, and this is just the first year of me even trying things out. So if I'm getting noticed right now, just imagine how things could compound in a span of, say, a decade. And my dad still didn't buy that shit, because he felt that, because he didn't get through the college, he's demotivated, and hence he's trying to look at other career options. So they were also in a delusion that, this fellow, because he didn't get through a college, he's trying to pursue other career options. And it was a constant debate, and we never looked eye to eye on this subject ever. And for me, what happened after that was, I started speaking to you guys as well, like what can we pursue, like what can we do? And after getting into actual live ad sets is when I started realizing the potential of, blowing things up. And that made me realize that, you just got to step up.
Yeah.
Again, advertising felt like the thing. And moreover, around that time, I think my dad was also starting to get worried, and he felt that I'm still dicey. I might switch my mind any moment, because for him, who had no clue what's happening, so he thought isko football player banna hai, isko ab suddenly drummer banna hai, and abhi ye suddenly bol raha hai isko filmmaker banna hai, and every year things are changing.
Yeah.
So he was just so furious, and he thought what, I need to teach this guy a lesson. And he just took me to Pune to his friend's factory, and he was like, you're gonna live here, try out every damn job, and understand how things work. And just the fact that he was uprooting me from Bombay and shifting me to Pune for because for me, I felt like I'm going to be around for too long. I'm going to be there for a month. Yeah, we had a farewell party, low-key emotional party that, Nilay's gone.
Yeah, dude, that day I remember, dude, you completely cut your hair.
Yeah.
And we have this photo of you holding them.
So yeah, again, see, as a rebellion, these were things that now I think I was rebelling, but I felt I needed a fresh start, so I just shaved my head.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, is this really how I'm going to take him to my friend's factory? So anyway,
Hashtag being a rebel.
And the funny part is I still didn't realize I was rebelling.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I was so trying to please my parents, I didn't really think of it as that, because in my head, I couldn't go against them. But so for me, I felt like, I just need a change. So I shaved my head because I'm impulsive like that. That's how I felt back then. But now I feel that, maybe I was involuntarily trying to do these things. But anyway, so he moved me to Pune. And I remember that, it was a chemical factory of sorts. They had these different products. I'm not going to get into what they do exactly. But right from being their logistics person who literally picks up boxes and keeps it there, to being somebody's PA and just taking out, minutes of the meeting, to sitting with accounts team and taking care of their Excel sheets just to organize them, to then also going for sales pitches. He just threw me into the mix. And I, in that moment, because, once you take a drop and you see your friends doing well, and, here you are still battling and building up the courage to speak to your parents and actually get a conclusive decision to what your career is going to be. I just took it all on me. I was like, you know what, I'm just meant for this. Because I'm not decisive enough, I'm just going to struggle through this. And this is what my life is. I need to go through this. So I started working really hard at the factory for no reason. Of course, I was, hating on my dad. And my mom would cry and, she would call me. She'd like, kaise ho, what's happening? And, I would eat at this random local mess nearby. And my dad just really wanted me to understand what it takes to make money. Because, and also where this was stemming from was because I remember in one of our heated debates, I told him, very outright, and I was like, how much do you think an engineer makes once they graduate in our country? And my dad was like, well, what do you mean? What are you saying? I was like, kitna banega? 25,000 rupees. Best case scenario, 30 grand. I'm making that much by doing one gig at this club. I'm making this much money by playing at a club. And that's one night's fee. and you're telling me I need to work hard for 30 days to make this much money. What's the point? So I remember that my dad knew that, he needs to be taught that it's a long-term career. It's not like a short-term gig that I need to look at. So he was coming from that perspective. So he threw me into this mix. And, 7 days into it, I remember like I was losing my mind because as a really active teenager, you're put into a house and, you're working with people who strictly speak a very different language than you. Their lifestyle is so much different. I think I was at the rock bottom for me, at least back then. And, and I think I'm sure like the employees or the people around must have told my dad how I'm feeling and how I'm behaving. Because it's not like I was aggressive or anything. I think everybody just noticed that I'm really low. And I think on the 8th day itself, my dad just showed up and he just took me back home without saying. We didn't speak at all. And he just took me back to, Navi Mumbai. And he's like, now I hope you know how hard it is to make money. So don't ever say shit like कि मैं एक रात में इतना बना लूँगा. So I said, okay, I get it. And of course, now I think about it that, bro, you could have just said it in a 1-hour lecture. Why did you make me go through 1 week of hell, man?
7 days of your life.
Yeah. But see, somewhere at least back then I was really angry, why he was making me do these things. But maybe somewhere I relate to it now. It made me it humbled me because I feel it's not when you start making money too early, I feel it maybe makes you a little egoistic. And I feel maybe as a teenager, I was getting egoistic about, I can take care of myself. You don't need to fund my college and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see that happen.
So, and I had already told him that, if I'm doing BMM, I don't need your money. So shit like this that I was starting to, talk about. And he felt like this is the way I need to humble him. I hated him for it. But then now, as I look back, since you were asking me, how it was. So, it just, I think, made me comfortable with the lowest of lows. I just knew that there's only one way, to go. It's up. It can't get worse than this,
Sure.
So, which is why I think when I started also working at Shabang, everybody has their own entry-level salaries and all of that. I decided to save up my salary and, kind of start investing and all of that because I had already started reading up about these things.
Right.
So, because of which, my first apartment that I moved into, which you were talking about, in my Shabang salary, I paid half of it. And I was living in a 1 RK chawl in Century Bazaar, behind Century Bazaar actually, where the, fishermen and all, their entire village area is. And I started staying there in a chawl with a, college junior of mine who was in college, but I had already started working. And the funny thing is, whoever came to that house, I remember my mom got really emotional. She's like, why are you staying here? Because we had a really nice apartment in Navi Mumbai. It's a good 3 BHK, spacious and good society. And then your mom comes too early.
Yeah.
And literally at the prettiest Century Bazaar is a good looking place, yeah. And then I tell them, okay, no, it's not this. You have to come behind this area.
Yeah.
And once you go inside, you see a chawl where there's, leakage everywhere. If it was raining, my entire apartment would be flooded. And, you literally have to pick up buckets and throw water outside. And you see everybody else doing it, so you can't complain. So I feel somewhere I was punishing myself that, because I didn't take a good decision. So I was like, I have to go through this.
Sorry, take a good decision?
Take a good decision, right in time. If I had the courage to speak to my parents and I had told them earlier that, guys, engineering is not the way, and I didn't take a drop, maybe I could have convinced them to do BMM and started my journey earlier.
Oh, got it.
So in my head, as I'm saying, this is all based on my exposure to life, and nobody really told me, oh, hustle is the culture and all of that, or going all Gary Vee on me. There was nothing like that. It was just me. I felt so guilty for doing what I love doing. I felt no, I want to go through these hardships and just take it as it comes. So I stayed in this, 1 room space with, this college junior of mine. I convinced him somehow how we'll function this entire system because it was a really tiny apartment.
Yeah.
And I was just comfortable with it because, again, why was I comfortable with it? Because of that 1 week in Pune. When I stayed in that shitty place, when I moved to another shitty place, and I had an independent life here because I had my own, I would cycle to work every day and come back and all of that. It just felt like, okay, at least I'm in control.
Yeah, I can imagine how it must have really affected your thinking and your, growth in those areas. But here's a question, okay?
Yeah.
On one level, those 7 days were the lowest, as you said, for you.
Yeah.
Emotionally, especially. And then they also made you resilient, right? Now, hypothetically, say someday you have a kid, would you do that to your kid?
Oh wow, I've never I've never thought about it, but I think I won't. I think what I would like to rather do is have the communication channel like really transparent. I think first and foremost, what I would like to do is just create like a really safe environment in the house. I'm not saying my parents didn't. I'm saying, like, as I said, like there's no book to parenting, right? But I felt like if my parents were like a little more accepting of emotions and like, like really understanding me, I think life would have been better. Like, because like, I mean, I wasn't a rebel kid in general, like, but it just happened. So I feel like what I would rather like to do is just have the transparency, I mean, in the house and like the upbringing of the offspring of mine or whatever, like, I mean, make it so safe that they can like just openly talk. Like, I feel that's level one, bare bones. Like, if you can't talk about what you love, something's really wrong. So I think I would rather do that. I wouldn't ever want anybody to go through hardship just because that's how you learn. I don't think that's the way.
Got you.
I mean, but that's just me again, that's just me. Like, I mean, because see, there are different schools out there. Everyone's going to say, oh no, you have to hustle in your first couple of years. Only then you will be able to understand, like, I mean, what is a high if you've not experienced the low and all of that. I feel, see, it's about how smart you are, yeah. Like, I mean, if you are self-aware enough to know where you want to be, why, and in fact, if you have that privilege to start from a certain platform, why do you want to dig in, man? Just use the privilege in a way that it catapults you further, no? So I've realized this later, but at least back then when I was living in the chawl also, it's just stupid. I think it's stupid now, but back then I felt like it's a badge on my shoulder, like a soldier. Like, these are my scars, these are my medals, I felt.
Yeah, I think we all somewhere or the other relate to an underdog story where, we have to start at the bottom to make it.
Yeah.
And I get where you're coming from, and it's one of those things where, it's so funny to see that it wasn't a one-day moment. It wasn't like one day you decided to pursue filmmaking, and that's exactly what it was, right? There were several instances and several moments through a period of like 4-5 years where you looked back, where you were torn between your decision, right?
Yeah.
And what's the most interesting and the most fascinating part for me especially is that I love how considerate you were towards your parents, despite how much they were trying to pull you against or push you against your own decision or your own choice, right? Not to say that they were doing that for that reason, but it's one of those things where you were in a big conflict then, but yet you did not stop being considerate towards your family, right? That I think is commendable, right? That I think is great. What I want to understand from you is that your consideration towards your family is one of the things that I appreciate, but how does that play into your work? Like, how does that bleed into your work in terms of a personality trait?
So, see, actually it has transitioned. So while I was, like, I mean, considerate of my family, actually, very honestly, I think I wasn't considerate. I think it was more of a guilt trip.
Oh, really?
I think it was for the longest of time, I think it was just the guilt trip, because I would often look at, because I was never the kid who wanted, these expensive gadgets or like, get me this particular cycle, which is, trending right now, or like, I want a motorcycle because I've moved, like I've just started college, like every, like, I mean, teenage boy wants a bike once they move into, a college again, like a stereotype. But I was never into all these things. Like for me, I always looked at, how much effort my parents are putting into raising us and the kind of sacrifices they are doing. It was never like, oh, they were showing it to me, but I just made sure I see it.
Got you.
And because of which it was more actually of a guilt trip, and I was just working hard. And I feel because of which I think I did physically like spoil my body as well, because I went through a lot of multitasking freelance gigs here and there. I would, like, I mean, curse myself for sleeping more than 3 hours a day. And I was like doing like 4 different activities, like meeting people, networking, shooting a restaurant gig, doing like a random photo shoot. It's actually quite funny. Like I've done a bikini shoot for a model also. So like I would do everything, like, shooting weddings to sketches, like what we used to do, shooting live gigs to, like, I mean, assisting on ad sets, like assisting on, music video shoots. I was trying to do everything to quickly find out what do I really want to do.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact that it was driven by the guilt rather than being considerate. But I think over the years now, I feel like I'm a lot more considerate about what my family is about, and what family means, and how you have to make time for them. Because I think I've transitioned last year, if I'm not wrong. Like and before that, because when I switched from engineering, I felt like I had this big burden, this black cloud over me, and it's constantly gonna keep raining till I make it. Whatever making it meant, I felt like I need to keep hustling till I've not figured out what I want to do. Because I felt like all my friends, the moment you're in an engineering college, I feel like at least okay, next 4 years, this is what you're going to do.
Right.
And for me, I was always battling, trying to study advertising and there's music. How is this all connecting? So I felt like I put a lot of pressure on me for no reason now that I think about it.
Yeah, I remember one of our friends used to say, right, like, you have more fingers than balls you can dip in,
Yeah, because that was me. I literally would time my day to the T. And the moment, I would just rudely bounce off a meeting because I have another thing bleeding in. So I did a lot of that. I felt sick so many times, there were times when I was lying at home saying, oh, I've crashed at my friend's place, but I've legit, I'm on Charni Road. I've crashed there on the platform for 3 hours at night, woken up, caught an early morning train and moved to somewhere else for an outdoor shoot. So
Man.
I was just doing, and nobody told me to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not like I couldn't ask for money at home. I just felt I've started college and my parents are really disappointed. I've heard their social status and their image in the society. And I just really need to do something big. And because of which, I felt like whatever I can afford, I'm going to do that. So I moved into this chawl. If it meant skipping a meal in the day, I did. Not buying clothes on my birthday, little silly things, yeah. I never really had to do this, but I would do that, pick up random shit gigs, which means I won't get sleep for the next 48 hours. I would just take them up. So I just kept doing these things till my college ended. So
Dude, let's talk about that, right? Like sleepless moments. I remember, I think in one of these days you had to go to Russia.
oh man, that is one hell of a
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to go to Russia to do a gig, right?
Yeah.
And then I think, was it when you were going that you didn't sleep, or when you were coming back? What was the exact way it played out?
So I'll tell you. Okay, so a quick context I'll give you. So what was happening is, for the folks who don't know this, that music was also going well, and so was our parody sketches and ADing gigs and all of that on set. So I had started to understand that filmmaking industry is where I want to be. Advertising, music videos, just the medium has to be this.
Right.
I knew that. And because of my upbringing and the people around me, my parents' friends and my own relatives, filmmaking was a luxury. Where I come from, money has to be earned, and if a meeting would mean you're in a suit, you've got a briefcase and you're meeting somebody for professional terms and you're discussing Excel sheets and pie charts. So for me, work always meant that. And I think my family also felt office jana matlab you're wearing formals.
Yeah.
If you're not, you have to look the part. Either you're a doctor or you're this, or you're into finance, you're a CA or something. But being a musician as a profession felt like, oh, what are you doing? Because I remember for the longest of time, I couldn't make my family understand that playing at a club is not a demeaning thing.
Right.
I remember my parents used to be really ashamed. They would be embarrassed. They wouldn't tell people that their son's a musician.
Yeah.
Or we were playing at the best cafes and pubs and clubs in the country, but my parents wouldn't tell anybody till the time Afla Tunes, my a cappella beatbox band, we did TEDx.
Right.
Till then, my parents were like, all this is time pass. So just now, from this journey to when now Russia was happening, so even the Russian story is quite funny. One thing I think what we made sure as when we were doing our sketches at Snotty P, we would put out our content everywhere.
Right.
And we would be proud of what we are doing, no matter what it was. At least we believed in it.
Yeah.
So because of posting content, I would post very actively on Facebook and Instagram that I'm a musician. Hey, I do this. I've been gigging here. I would put up stories and I was quite active like that. And because of which some lady called Lisa Bobriashova from Russia contacted me on Facebook. Okay, this is super random again. I had no clue because the name itself felt like a scam.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody like that contacts me, I would like, it's a scam, right?
Yeah, and I just get a very random message from them, on Facebook, and Lisa Bobriashova. I was like, dude, what? And the first couple of messages. So, she was very professional. I mean, I don't know if Lisa is ever going to listen to this. We are not in touch ever since the gigs. And she sent me a long message about how in Moscow this gig was happening. So how New York has the Times Square, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, there's something in Moscow, but it's more of like a collective of gardens.
Gotcha.
So they have like a committee that hosts these events called Around the World.
Around the world, huh?
Yeah. So during the New Year's Eve, what they do is they put up a gig in one of these parks. It keeps changing, and they call artists from across the country.
Got it.
Okay. So they wanted me to go alone as an Indian harmonica beatboxer, because back then I had put up a video on YouTube, where I was beatboxing and playing the harmonica.
Yeah.
So she really liked it and she wanted me to perform solo. And I was like, dude, this is some guy, some Indian Sharma ji ka beta trying to take a dig at me. And I just abused them right on the chat. I was like, bhai, main bhi ladka hi hu, kya kar raha hai yaar? And then she just responded with a question mark. And next thing is I started getting voice calls because I was ignoring this person. I started getting voice calls on the chat. I was like, dude, what is going on? Then I see a video miss call. I was like, dude, I am under the radar.
Video miss call
From Russia. I was like, I am gone. I am gone.
Shit.
So I was like, you know what? See, either way, they have my contact. They probably know where I am. And they're going to pick me up. Whatever it was, my trivial childish mentality back then.
Yes.
I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just pick up the call. Let me just see what happens. And, I take the video call. She's there. She's got like a couple of her teammates and everybody's professionally sitting. Okay. And mind you, this is pre-pandemic. And this is, I think, around 2017. Yeah, this is, I think, 2016, 2017. And I'm still in college. Okay. I was, I think, in my third year of college.
Third year, huh?
Yeah, third year of college. And she's called me. And this was the first time I'm doing like a e-meet with somebody. And she starts to, pitch this thing to me. And she's like, all expenses will be taken care of.
Oh, wow.
And, this is like a legit thing. And we're going to send you documents. Can you give me your mail ID? I've been trying to reach you. And, please believe us. I got your message translated on Google. And I figured what you meant. And I was very embarrassed. And I was like,
Got it translated.
So I was like, no, don't get me wrong. And she's like, okay, so Nilay, what can you do? How can we move this ahead? And again, while this conversation was happening, I was still very scared. I was like, I am not going to Russia alone. Okay.
Yeah.
So then what I did was immediately I pitched our band, which was Crumble Street. So I told them, I'm a part of this band called Crumble Street. It's a new metal project. And they're like, okay, but what language do you guys do your songs in? So I said, it's primarily English and it's like a bit of beatbox as well. So they said, we don't want an English band. We want the audience to experience something that's more regional towards your country, as to we want you to sing in your own language. I was like, okay, cool. Then that makes it, either Afla Tunes or Zuban. So Zuban was a project that I was a part of. It's, led by Kavish Seth. You guys should check it out. It's a really beautiful thing. And what,
Subtle plug in there.
Yeah, subtle plug in there, man. I mean, so what Zuban is basically, it's a movement of sorts.
Yeah.
Where what you would do is say, city artists like us, we would go to like different parts of our country, find musicians there, jam with them, set up this entire gig in their own, tiny villages or cities, wherever they are, and shoot an entire documentary around it. So as you're raising funds to do a gig over there, you perform with them there, you tell the locals that, hey, give these musicians some work. And of course, once we raise funds here in Mumbai or wherever we are, we put up shows for them. So we kind of take them out of their, places and make them travel the world. So with that project itself, when I told them this story, they got really excited. They said, you know what, Nilay, Zuban is perfect. We want you to play a gig with Zuban.
Sweet. Got it. Okay.
And me being me, I didn't care about money. How much are they paying? I just said, yeah, we're in. I remember even on mail, I just said, great, excited. That's it. I did not discuss anything in terms of money, what's happening, how much will be paid, and who's going to cover the flights, what are the documents that are needed, because I had never gone anywhere outside the country, And the moment I involved Zuban, which was honestly a, foul cry, because I didn't want to die alone, because I was thinking that, somebody's going to kidnap me in Russia. I just thought that's going to happen to me. So the moment I involved, Kavish Bhaiya, and he got involved, and then we thought, let's just get one more musician to play with us. So it was Kavish Seth and Raghvendra.
Got it.
Raghavendra Kumar, he's from Banaras.
Got it.
So he's a fantastic, phenomenal, Mohan Meena player.
Okay.
And we felt this was a good blend because Kavish said he's a singer-songwriter and I can do percussion, I can beatbox. I was playing the cajon, I was playing drums. I was like, this ensemble sounds right. So we then started talking. So like, I mean, somebody, of course, mature had to start speaking to Kavish.
Yeah.
We took over the conversation. And he, of course, like, filled up all the gaps that I was like unbothered.
Yeah,
And
and I
like,
felt like Lisa must have also felt a relief, right? Like after great, excited, somebody mature stepping in.
Exactly. So he took over and, he kind of like streamlined the whole thing and the process. And finally, like it was happening. Like we are going to Russia now. Okay. And again, like, since I'm going to Russia, I'm going to be spending like around 4 or 5 days over there. I'm going to be chilling also, apart from playing one show. So again, like me being me, I started feeling guilty. I was like, dude, I'm going to go to Russia and I need to make sure I make the most of it before I go there because it's going to be also a vacation, which is again, I don't know why I had this mentality, And I was like, no, I have to work and I have to slog and like, anyhow do as much as I can so that once I go to Russia, I don't feel too bad, even if I'm
Right.
chilling for 2 days. So what I did was right before my flight to Delhi. So our plan was that, we also felt let's just get a show done in Delhi. So I was playing with Zuban over there. But a day before that, I had 3 shoots in Bombay, which was just a random photography gig and like one food shoot. And there was some wedding also I was covering. So I was doing 3 things in the day. And the next day I was supposed to go to, Delhi, perform over there. Right after the performance, we were supposed to go to the airport and get our flight to Russia.
Like happening across 48 hours, huh?
Yeah. In 48 hours, I had crunched it so much to not feel guilty about it. So my day goes very well in Bombay. And again, as I said, I was just sleeping for 3-4 hours, not more than that, which again was too toxic. I don't know why I did it.
Before that day.
This is before that.
Right.
So again, I was functioning on 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I've done these 3 gigs. I've now at night from Bombay, I've got a train. Because again, I was trying to save money. I was like, let me just take a train. Let me not take a flight. So I take this train. I somehow managed to reach my coach and I keep my luggage. And I remember writing down some notes as to myself. Like I was journaling. Like I was just writing on my notes as to what am I feeling? What am I supposed to do next? These are my checklists that I need to pack in Delhi for. And next thing I know that I have woken up, and we've reached Delhi. And my bag and my phone is missing.
Oh shit.
And I'm in the train. And I'm like, dude, what? It just happened because it was like a blip. Like I just completely, so basically I knocked out in the train because I'd physically exhausted myself so much that while being on the phone, I had just passed out. Like literally fainted on the like berth and I just slept. And what happened is when I woke up, I started panicking. I was like, dude, I have a flight to Russia. All my contact is on my phone. And because I was so busy, I don't know where to go in Delhi because I was going to reach Delhi and call up, my bandmates and be like, okay, guys, where are you? Where do I see you? And I've lost my phone. And dude, I'm just running up and down entire, coach, I'm asking people. People have started leaving. Everybody's in a hurry because they want to get down at, Nizamuddin station. And I'm like, oh shit, what do I do? And as I'm, pacing across the coach, this one fellow on top who's sitting, he giggles. Okay. Giggles.
Oh,
As
shit.
mind you, I have not had dinner because I just passed out. Maybe that was the reason I passed out because I didn't sleep well and I was running all day and I didn't have dinner. And he giggled and I lost it. And I started, speaking rudely to him and I was like, dude, ye aapko mazak lag raha hai yaar, mera phone nahi mil raha. And you're laughing and he hands me my phone.
What?
And I was like, dude, how is this funny? And okay, and I'm yelling at him and like the TC also conveniently somehow has managed to enter the board, coach because he thinks I'm accusing him of, stealing my phone. And I was like, nahi, I'm just angry. Like you had my phone. Why didn't you tell me? Like I've been running around since the past 15-20 minutes. He's like, sorry yaar, मैं सिर्फ देख रहा था कि आपको पता चलेगा कि नहीं.
The balls on him, huh?
And I was like, how is this funny?
Oh,
and
shit.
he's like, nahi, I can't believe it. I couldn't believe. I thought आप acting कर रहे हो. I was like, भाई मैं acting क्यों करूँगा? Look at me. I have one bag. I have to find my way through. Just look at me because I'm young, right? I'm in college. Like, I don't have my shit together. You clearly can see. And mind you, this was like a grown ass 32-year-old man who's laughing at me, okay?
Fuck.
And so the TC is also like, क्या हो गया आप इनका phone क्यों नहीं दे देते? इनको समझ में नहीं आता क्या? So then he tells the TC, आपको याद है रात में पुलिस चेकिंग हो रही थी यहाँ कोच में? And the TC is like, हाँ. बोला देखो आपको रात में एक लड़का था, उसका फ़ोन हमें गिरा हुआ मिला. तो he's like हाँ, बोलते यही लड़का है. So the TC also starts laughing at me. अरे आप हो क्या? And I was like, what happened? What is this story that I don't know of? So then they told me that basically when the police checkups are happening in the train, they woke me up. Really? In the middle of the night saying, is this your phone? Because my bag and my phone, both of them had fallen down. And like my WhatsApp and everything is open on my phone. And they woke me up to give me my phone. They've put a torch on my face.
Oh shit.
Waking me up, asking me, is this yours? And I've said, please, meko sone do. And mera nahi hai. So they took my stuff and they had given it to the TC who had eventually given it to this guy only.
And you don't recall any?
I don't recall any of this happening.
Oh man.
So this happened, and so see, that was the extreme to which I was pushing myself physically. And then anyway, like somehow I managed to, contact these guys. Now I've played the gig at Delhi, and very good show that happened. And now we are rushing to the airport. Mind you, I have not thought about exchanging my currency, and this was also exactly a month around. This was after demonetization.
Oh, got it.
So we've not thought through at all. We are going to Russia as if we are going to Dombivli, okay? And we're like, hey, we'll figure it out. We'll exchange the currency on the airport. We'll see. SIM card, who needs a SIM card? We'll figure it out. Okay, no thought process, anything. So now we boarded from Delhi and I'm super pumped, okay? Like super unaware. I have no clue what's going to happen. And I'm posting stories on Instagram, as I've landed on the airport. That, oh, I had breakfast twice today because of the time delay and all of that. I was like, oh, life is great, excited to see what Russia has for us. We reach Russia. Okay, we've got instruments on us and we were coming there on a tourist visa. Because everything was so last minute, they couldn't really make it a business thing.
Right.
So we were more like coming there as tourists and we happened to play a gig was the plan.
Got it.
And eventually, like legally, whatever they want to figure out with the embassy was happening like offline.
Got it.
But we had to go there because this was around New Year's. Now, as this is happening, we've reached the airport. The security sees 3 dudes with massive big beard and, instruments on them and they're saying they're tourists. Exactly when the country has gone through a demonetization, they've got cash in their bag. Because, so one of us was carrying hard cash because they thought at least let's just carry like 10-15 grand on us. So they were like, why do they have this currency which is now banned? And they've come here on New Year's Eve. So they start looking at us as terrorists or whatever,
Oh man.
So they just detained us, bro.
Oh really?
Like we reached the airport, they lock us up in like a security room of sorts. And very notoriously, they were speaking to us in Russian. Nobody's entertaining English. And we are losing our minds because we don't have a SIM card. Okay, their entire website is in Russian. And when we tried to translate it into English, we were just struggling to connect to the Wi-Fi now. And our, caretaker, who was in contact with us, like Lisa, she's not picking up a call. Now, we don't have her phone number. We have her on Facebook. Maybe she's not connected to the internet. So, she's not picking up a call. And now they start looking at our documents. So, we had our reservations under somebody else's name.
Oh, shit.
We didn't know that. So, the cops, the security, they start calling up all these hotels and the places where we were supposed to stay. Everybody's like, we have no clue who these guys are. The booking is under somebody else's name. So that's when it occurred to us that, okay, why will they book it on us? Maybe they booked it on the person who's taking care of us.
Right.
So we said, okay, check Lisa's name. They said, yeah, this makes sense. So the police calmed down, the security, they just calmed down a little. So we said, okay, cool. So we were like, this is the person, we want to get in touch with her. So somehow they kept like ragging us. They made us strip completely of our bags. They were digging into everything that was there. They made us like open our clothes, like they were, properly like deep frisking us and all of that. And then luckily, Lisa picked up our call.
Okay.
And mind you, by then, I think for around good, 1.5 hour, this was going on. And we are freaking out to a point where we are yelling at the 3 of us in Hindi.
Oh shit.
What is going on? We just like really mad at each other that why didn't we think this through? Why didn't we just get a damn SIM card? Because we are furious that, and we are like, oh shit, like we can't come to Russia only to be sent back.
Right. Of course.
That
after what you went through in the train.
Yeah. And I was like, what is going on? And in my head, I'm like, I should never post stories. So, I'm trying to like ease the tension in the room by like, saying such stuff. And then luckily Lisa picks up and she's like, okay, I'm on my way. She speaks to them in Russian. She comes and like, she immediately speaks to them. In 10 minutes, we are done. Like, I have no idea what she said to them, but for one good 1.5 hour, we were grilled there.
And 10 minutes you're sorted.
In 10 minutes, we are sorted. She picked us up, and now we've moved out, and our Russian chapter has begun.
Got it.
So, after going through all of that, but in the background, what was happening is, it was actually then my parents started to take my career seriously. Because then they started to think, okay, that, he's going on an all-paid expense trip to Russia. He's going to be performing there, representing India. So that's when they started thinking, okay, there is potential, there is impact. Yeah. So that's when, my dad and we started seeing things together. That's when he started taking me seriously a little more. So that's what happened in Russia. The 4 days in Russia was also another story only altogether.
Oh, I did not know some of these details, man. I think we need to do more of these podcasts to get more stories out of you, dude.
So, that's what had happened, man. It was quite a scary experience, but yeah, that's what we did. We played in Russia, so we were supposed to play one show. But what happened is, the moment we played, I think it was around 11 o'clock, our slot was at 11 p.m. So we played from 11 to 11:30. And mind you, Kavish Seth is a brilliant singer-songwriter, the way he gets his lyrics done, the context that he's writing in, and his voice, his playing style, everything, it's very unique. And what blew my mind, even as a musician, because mind you, by then, I'm also playing to an international audience for the first time. And when we were playing, and the venue was too good because it's happening at a Central Park kind of a place. So our stage is, in the center of the park. There's an ice skate rink in front of us. And then there's the garden where the audience is. So it was a very surreal experience because it's snowing, it's minus 10 degrees. And, you're on stage with all these heaters around. And, the only 3 Indians are the 3 of us. And we are seeing people skating. And then there are people that were crying while the songs were going on. And we finished our set. I don't remember how the set went. All I know is that, some of the people approached us and there was this lady who was crying and she hugged us, she kissed all of us.
Oh,
and she's like, whatever she was saying, and there was, one more person over there who was kind of taking care of us. His name is Keshav Kuku. So,
and he was from Russia.
No. So he's also a really interesting fellow. So he's a IIT Delhi graduate who's now staying in Russia, writing a book in Russian about India. And he also kind of, does these taking care of people exchanges and all of that. And he teaches over there.
Oh, wow.
So he teaches MBA students and all of that. So he's another eccentric fellow who was taking care of us. Okay, so he was our translator basically. He was showing us the city around and all of that. So he told us that this lady who's crying, she really loved what you performed.
Good.
And her husband has this, club which is down the street. And they're asking us if we want to play there at midnight.
So you got another gig.
We got another gig right after playing this. So we said, okay, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. We're cool. Let's do it.
Love it.
So we immediately gig hopped from this place to that place. And mind you, see, Moscow is also, small. It's not very big. So by then, somehow the news has traveled to our hostel also that, this band from India is here and you should, if you can catch their gig, you should. So by then we played at this really bomb club and, our New Year's Eve was phenomenal. And when we come back to the hostel, these guys are like, guys, you know what, we're going to waive off all your charges. Why don't you just perform for us?
Oh, sweet.
So we performed at the hostel again. So we literally paid 3 gigs back to back.
You had a full tour without having a tour.
Exactly. It was a 1 gig deal that we had with them. But these doors started opening and it's just one of my most memorable, events of my life. So that's what the Russian chapter was about. Yeah.
Good one, man.
Yeah.
Good one. And it's just so fascinating, right? You went through so much. And what made your parents really take was that you were representing India.
Because, see, think of it from their perspective also, no? If from playing at clubs to representing India, definitely this had more weightage. And that too, New Year's Eve in Russia, they just felt like, oh shit, our sons made it. So that's when they started thinking that, okay, there's some, prospect, there's some future to what he's doing. Maybe he knows what he's doing.
Right. I wonder what they would think about it now.
But yeah, that's what, that was the main moment, I think, from when my parents were like, okay, you know what, we're not going to question anything, just do what you want to do.
Good one, dude. It's great to see this, right? I want to ask you just a couple of questions before we wrap. It's one of those things where you went through all these things to get to the point you are here today, right? And one thing I noticed and realized was that you weren't prepared to take on some of these things, right?
Yeah.
Case in point, the entire train journey, you were exhausted, you did not know what went through the night, and you weren't even prepared to go to Russia until you went there and figured it out, right?
Yeah.
As I understand filmmaking, these are the exact things that you don't need, right? So I'm keen to understand, how did the shift happen when it came to filmmaking for you? Like when you're on the set, when you're off the set.
So I'll tell you what started happening. Like, I mean, after this gig, of course, any musician who would have done such a tour would want to pursue music full time. But I started to realize that the moment the stakes were this high for me as a musician, I started to get stressed about playing on stage. Like, I started playing with more and more artists right after this because, you're on a high. Like, once you've come back from there, now the local indie scene is going to know, oh, these guys played in Russia, they represented India and all of that. The world doesn't know. Just the local indie scene, like, everybody's like, oh, this one played there, and that's what they did for New Year's and all of that. So I started playing a lot more seriously and professionally, and I started practicing more and more. And the more I practiced and the more I was trying to get disciplined as a musician, it started to take away the fun for me. Like, it started taking away the creativity, and moreover, the bigger the shows I started getting, the more stressed I started getting that, oh my God, I need to perform that, at that particular level. Like, this other project, my pop rock project called Fairy Tales, even when I used to play with them, there was a lot more complicated music. So as a drummer, I would be challenged to, like, have my 110% focus on each track and each bar that's going on. And I think while doing that, while doing Shabang, while doing Afla tunes, and simultaneously doing these photography gigs, and also, like, the sketch channel that we had, Snot EP, and ADing on sets, I think somewhere I started to realize what is stress and, like, what is coming easy to me.
Right.
And at the cusp of this pressure and threshold of me pushing myself in every, expanding in every possible direction, I felt that, okay, you know what? Maybe direction is something that I really like. This is one place where as a director, I get to wear a hat where I can do everything. Like, everything just comes together when I'm doing this. I don't really have to worry about how I hold the camera or how the scene is lit. I just need to focus on my vision, and I just need to get it executed through the right set of people and ensure I get that performance out. And the moment I started, realizing that by being an AD on set, like seeing good directors, and like, I think I've always been really lucky to have the right set of people somehow around. Like, as you can see, I'm very prepared about most of the things in my life. But I think I was just really lucky to have the right set of people around me. And looking at them do their thing, their craft, like honing it so well, it maybe pushed me to do the same.
Got it.
And I think that's when I realized that, maybe music, as a musician, I need to maybe take a step back and I should channel all my energy into becoming a director.
Got it.
And which is when, coincidentally, Shabang was also happening. And I actually originally joined Shabang as an assistant director.
Right.
And they immediately started giving me chief AD gigs. And the moment I got my big project as a chief AD, my director on set back then, like Shayan Mukherjee, who was also my boss when I had started at Shabang, he realized and he saw through that I am a really bad chief AD.
Oh shit.
And
you telling your Russia story.
So, what happened is, see, this is also like a distinction that a lot of young filmmakers don't understand. Like, the hierarchy, and nobody really like makes you sit down and tell you that, okay, this is what a chief AD does.
Yes.
This is what your second AD, third AD, fourth AD, like what is this hierarchy? Oh, and then there's a DA also. What's the difference between a DA and like a AD? And then you also have associate directors, and like there was just so many
designations, and you're just like, you get a new job and you're expected to know everything, right?
Yeah, and exactly, you're expected to do everything. And I was like very new to the whole aspect, and I was an AD, so I didn't know what all it entails to really be a chief AD. And when this shoot happened, I was like, somehow I managed to have an efficient crew, so things like they kind of worked on their own. But right after this shoot, he sat me down and he said, Nilay, you're a really nice guy, you're a really creative, person, but we hired you for a job that you're really bad at.
Oh shit.
And he's like, I don't know what to do, because if you are in-house and, you're not able to, like, justify your job, what's the point of you being here? And I started, shitting bricks that, okay, what am I supposed to do now? This is when I'm done with college. I should have been able to sort my life. This is where it all connects.
What's my life? Big, big expectations.
So exactly, because, from doing 10 different things, I had finally, decided I'm going to focus on one thing, and music is going to be a side little thing.
Right, yeah.
And at my first job itself, I'm almost getting fired. So I told him that, I have been directing small projects.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that, maybe can you give me another chance? How do we go about it? Give me another project. I'm going to prove myself. And he said, see, Nilay, how about this? I'm going to give you a project. Show me how you can direct this. It was a hair commercial. It was a hair education series for Godrej.
Oh, wow.
Godrej Professional.
And this is your first project at Shabang?
First project. So this was the litmus thing. He said, if you do this well, if you can make an entertaining hair education series for me, as a viewer, if I like it, I'm going to promote you as a director and you start directing, or else, I think it's time you start looking out for other jobs.
Oh, wow. That's like a blessing in disguise, right? You suck at a job and your boss is giving you a promotion.
Exactly. So see, again, if this is not luck, what is?
Yeah.
So the moment he said that, and I said, okay, cool. So I go deep dive into this thing like a bull, and I'm I'm going to figure this out. And I start, doing my thing. And I, by the time this project is done and my film is ready, I present it to him. And he sees the film and he's like, dude, I can't believe I sat through a 3-minute hair education series, which is about coloring a woman's hair. And I was like, okay, is that good? Is it bad? What did you feel about it? He's like, dude, it's brilliant. I think you should start directing now. And I said, okay, great, cool. Let's do it. So that was the, transition period for me where I got this ego boost also in a way that, okay, I can maybe do things. So that's when direction started for me at Shabang.
Right.
And had it not been for that, I think I would have left and continued doing my AD gigs. Because also, I feel somewhere is the age factor also, no? It takes somebody young to kind of spot a young talent. Maybe that's what happened because my boss, even Shayan, was young and he was running the department. And he felt that there's some spark and hence he gave me a chance, because otherwise people feel that, if you're not experienced enough, why are you directing? Because I feel as a director on set, and in any other field, in every field, people, respect is supposed to be earned. You don't
that's so true. That's so true.
You don't throw your weight around with a designation and you just expect people to be like, oh yeah, you're a director, cool, I'm going to listen to you. It doesn't work like that. So being young and him giving me that opportunity, again, that was another uphill journey that I had to like fight.
Yeah, and I think one thing that perhaps is worth highlighting is the fact that it wasn't that you just became a chief AD and Shayan kind of just saw the talent in you. I don't think it was that simple, right? I think because you had years worth of work to show, not just as a musician,
correct,
but with the other stuff that you did. I remember one of your photo series got published on some news channel, publications. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then you had directed a few sketches before that. Although it wasn't like under a professional advertisement umbrella, I think there was a body of work that you were very proactive at developing. Don't you think that must have played?
I'm sure that must have played a big role, yeah, because even in college, I would never stick around for parties or generally people would want to hang with their friends before or after college. I would be just looking at my clock the moment the bell hits.
Yeah,
I would rush out, try my hand at some internship or just assist somebody or just attend some workshop that's going around in the city. So I was always trying to branch out and learn something new.
Exactly.
So I remember those, because of which I think maybe I had a body of work that made shine, because see, ultimately no matter what the project is, and especially in ads, no ad is small or big. Everything has stakes, and there are people, your client is ultimately it's their film,
right?
And they need to put their faith into you as well. There's a lot of money riding on it. So I feel it was somewhere also commendable from Shayan. Maybe he saw the body of work and hence he could feel confident about giving the project to me.
Yeah.
So
I think
it definitely plays a role to have your own portfolio to show something. Otherwise, why would you do that? Because
exactly.
I don't come from a film background at all.
Yeah. So and I felt the need to clarify that because I'll tell you what I've seen, right? A lot of people who just especially when I see some younger filmmakers who come from a background where they feel some people are really diligent with their work, right? But there are few who aren't, right? And they feel like they can demand a position, they can push for it, right? Which I think is not the way at least the industry works in general. Which brings me to the next question, and this is a question that we can end the podcast with, is that what do you feel having gone through this journey, right, from pushing against your parents to pushing against, all the different kind of forces that came at you in terms of, being a conflict in terms of you finding your footing as a director, till today in 2023, where you have one of the most sought after jobs and working at a great company, and you're about to get married, So you kind of turn your life around, right? So, in about a decade, you turn your life around. What is the most important thing that you would like to tell somebody who's trying to make it big today?
I feel, I'm sure by now, if you've been sticking around, watching and listening to us, like I've just been lucky to have the right set of people. I feel it really matters who you're around. And I think I may have overheard somewhere, like, because you consume so much content that there's this 5-friend rule or something like that, no? Like, I mean, if it really matters who you're around. And I feel I was just always lucky to be a part of some circle where there were people who were also passionate about things that they were doing. And I feel it's really important to have people who are really honest. Like, apart from, of course, like, friends like you, Neil, you've been there since the beginning. Like, you've seen, we've collaborated as a musician. We've worked together as filmmakers. And even today, like my commercial work, like whatever I do, I always send it to you, like, for your opinion, what you feel, or if I'm taking up a project, we kind of have that relationship, which also is a background to your, you also being a, talent agent at Tulsi, your former play. You were, yeah. So, like, your expertise also helps me. So, see, it again, like, just the two of us also, if we talk about this, just so much more. And I feel like, my other close friend circle, like, there's, to name a few, like Akash, like, he's in Boston, like, he is working
exactly what your dad wanted.
Yeah, and he exactly, he did his chemical engineering, and not exactly, he was a chemical engineer, and now he's into product management and all of that. Right. He's doing really well in Boston, I've got a friend who's into finance. He's in Singapore, Pratik. We call him Woody. Yeah. And then, two of my friends, they're in Germany. They're pursuing their masters, and, they're one of them is doing physics. So I have a very diverse friend circle immediately also. Like, the way, like, if I want to talk about films or anything, what's happening in the current industry scenario, I speak to you. If I want to know about, world politics or like geopolitically, whatever's happening, I speak to Pratik because, he's in Singapore, he's a trader, and like, he trades in FX and currency. So he understands, he gives me that, perspective of what's happening. If I'm understanding brands, my product management friend Akash, he speaks to me about, a holistic view as to like how brands are working. I myself have an advertising background. So I understand how marketing and advertisement works. So I feel like somewhere this, wall of people around me has kind of shaped me. And I feel what is very important and what I love about, you guys in general, and also like my fiance now, Rashmi, like, so she was a creative producer with me at Shabang, right? So we started off in a very work relationship of sorts, and like, that transition today, and like, we're engaged now and we're going to get married. I feel she's also been like a strong pillar where she was always honest, because our relationship kind of started off with this producer and director thing, which is also like, it's so funny because a producer always has the logistical and logical brain coming to the project, and also creatively. So she was always like brutally honest about what I'm doing. And so were my friend. I feel like you always need that mirror, like, like your friends telling you, or like your family telling you, somebody telling you what you're really doing, if it's right or wrong, and whatever their perspective is, to just have another perspective on what you're doing, I think is very important.
That's
and
interesting.
Like, your grit towards working, your talent, skill, I feel everything else can like be secondary. I think first, primarily, you should have the people around you who can be honest. And tell you what you're good at or you're bad at. Because see, of course, like, you're going to work hard. That goes without saying.
Yep.
I'm a very, very strong believer of that hard work always beats talent. And because that's how I am, I'm not the most, smart person in the room. But one thing is, I will always outwork whatever I feel the people around me are doing. Because that's my, that's who I am. Like, involuntarily, it happens to me. So, that's the only thing. I think you just got to stay at what you're doing. You just need the right people who just give you an honest feedback of what you're doing, and just trust yourself and keep doing what you're doing, man. I don't think there is any other way to go about it.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, after an entire chat about how sometimes your parents do things that may not be what you want to do, boils down to the kind of friends you choose, right? Yeah, I think that's interesting to see. Yeah, look, it's been great to have you here, and some of these things were even new to me, and I'm gonna like kick your ass after this podcast. But I hope to get you on board at some point later when we have more stories to uncover, and you are at a new phase in your exciting career ahead. I'm very happy for you. I'm very proud of you, and thanks again for being here.
Hey, cheers, man. You've been a wonderful host, and it couldn't be more comfortable than this.
I'm glad.
All right, cheers, man. Awesome, dude.